Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at a driving test route from Ashfield. Now this is a mock test, so we're starting on the test centre driveway, and as we come up to the end, as I say this on every video pretty much, and to every one of my pupils, keep the car really straight as you come up to the end and get yourself right to the end of the driveway. Try not to lean left or right before you reach the giveaway line. Make sure you're fully up to it so you can see around those signs on the right. This pupil is going to be taking a left turn and then following the signs for Derby. As the pupil pulls out, you can see the direction sign on the left there. Derby's on the bottom left, so we've got to turn left at the traffic lights. And then we've got the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, of course, you don't want to pick up your speed on approach to a red light, so the pupil's keeping the speed nice and low as she approaches, and that's absolutely spot on. Ready for that left turn with mirrors and signal already done. As the lights change, one last mirror check and then moving out into the new road. As we turn, there are two lanes, so we should be taking up that left-hand lane ideally. You can see the arrows on the right there telling us that that right lane merges in very quickly anyway, so make sure you're covering those right mirrors for anyone who might chance the way around you. Then, of course, get that speed up. It's a 50-mile-an-hour road, so we should be seeing you get into 45 mile an hour, give or take, if it's safe to do so. The pupil makes it to about 40 here, which is okay. I'm quite comfortable with that because we have got cars ahead. And as we approach the next junction, we're going to be looking for signs for Sutton Town Centre. Notice the traffic light warning, then the direction board, and you'll see Sutton Town Centre is a right turn. So that is your cue to get on those mirrors, pop your right signal on, and start moving over. And the pupil does a really nice job of that, going straight into that right-hand lane with confidence. As we join the queue, you'll notice that we have a separate filter light for the right turn. So the left and straight traffic have all just changed red. Our light goes green next, and we can turn with a clear path because the oncoming cars will be on red. Now, the oncoming cars turning right also have a filter light, but we've got to remember they are not going to cross paths with you when you make this right turn. So you just lean in like the car in front. You see all the other traffic waiting as you go across, straight into that left-hand position if it's safe, not forgetting the mirror check before you pick up your speed and looking out for speed limit signs hidden in trees. We've also got a few warnings about some roadworks. Now, I didn't actually notice anything that caused a problem here in terms of roadworks. Them signs are usually around where there's lane closures or the road gets narrow, so just keep an eye out for those. While we're following traffic, you can see the pupil keeps a really good following distance on the car in front. This allows her plenty of time to react to what's going on, and it gives a better view around them. If you're really close to the back of the car, particularly a big car like that, it's going to obstruct a lot of your view. So keep back, and that way you've got a better view ahead, more time to plan and respond to whatever changes ahead. At the traffic light junction, we're going to be turning left. Now, we want to be careful here not to signal too soon because of the entry to the car park on the left. Putting on your signal before that could cause that white van to pull out thinking you're going to turn in. So you signal about here, mirrors of course done before that, up to the lights and turn left. As we move, you can see the pupil picking up a speed nice and quickly. Just be mindful of pedestrians as you make these turns. Sometimes they will try to rush across the road, so if you spot them, just be mindful they may misjudge your speed or where you're going. This is why clear signals really help out as well, because then people can prepare more for what you're actually doing. In the event a pedestrian does walk out, just let them clear the road before you pass. Don't try to run them down because you will fail your test for that. Taking the next left here, this road there's quite a few parked cars. It does get narrower at points, so you will see the pupil carrying a lowered speed as she goes along here. What you won't see is the mirror use I'd expect to see lots and lots of mirror checks, checking the right side before you pass in parked cars and the left side as you pass them, just to keep yourself as up to date as possible. Notice how the pupil's holding back for the oncoming cars too, keeping herself nice and clear of the parked vehicles so she's got plenty of room to move around it as she goes. And this is absolutely perfect. Again, those mirrors are covered absolutely religiously as we come along here, and that is perfect. So right mirror and then move out, pass in the car, left mirror, and then lean in. And that's absolutely perfect. I'm going to ask the pupil to take the next road on the right. So we can see the wall and the hedges there blocking the view. The pupil slows right down and makes sure she can see into that road before turning, where I'm going to ask her to pull up in front of this black car. When you are doing your driving test, you will be asked to pull up several times. One of them will be an angle start like this, where you're asked to pull up in front of a car, leaving enough room to move off again. All the examiners want to see is that when you move out, you check your blind spot effectively, you're looking for oncoming cars, and you give that parked vehicle enough room when you go around it. You don't want to be getting too close to the front end of it. Equally, you don't want to swing out too wide as you go past it, because that shows poor control over the car. Keep yourself slow and focus on where you want the car to go for the best results when you're doing this. End of the road, turning left, and then we've got a bend. You can see the van and the car around the bend who are blocking our view, so the pupil's keeping a nice low speed, making sure she can see round the van before committing to that gap. Now that is a really good example of anticipation. If there's a vehicle coming the other way, that could really cost you if you're not ready for it. At the end of the road, we're going to take a left turn. And as you can see, there's already hedges and walls on the right hand side in particular, which are going to block our view. We can spot that nice and early, meaning we can prepare to bring the car in a lot slower when we're dealing with this junction. And the pupil does a really good job of that. We're going to take the next road on the right, which again is a very narrow road with a poor view. So you'll see the pupil bringing her speed right down so she can see round that red car and round into the road before actually bringing the car in. Take your time when you've got poor visibility on these junctions, because otherwise you're going to get caught out very quickly. We're then going to pull up on the left, where I'm going to ask the pupil to carry out her maneuver. Now on this occasion, it's going to be a parallel park. When you're doing your maneuvers, we want to see effective observations and really good control over the car. Now, by effective observations, what I mean is you're frequently checking over both shoulders, both mirrors, out the back window, ahead of you. It's all around observation throughout the maneuver, because you never know what is going to come up behind you or come out the driveways. The pupil does demonstrate really good awareness of what she's doing. However, I think she could have done a few more blind spot checks during this maneuver. That's why I've faulted that part of the maneuver. The other side of this is control. So if you can complete the maneuver in one move, that is absolutely brilliant. If you pull in and you haven't quite got the car where you want it, you are allowed to correct it, and that will result in you getting a driver fault. It won't fail you the test as long as you finish where you want and the corrections are effective. So the pupil does manage to do that. Initially, she pulls in and ends up a little bit far from the curb, so she shuffles forward and then reverses back in again, and that is absolutely fine by me. It's just going to pick up a driver fault because she had to correct it rather than getting in first time. So don't panic if your maneuver isn't perfect. It just needs correcting, and that is fine. When you move out again, just like with the angle start, check that blind spot, move the car out, and check your blind spot again. Be mindful of cars behind you and be mindful of oncoming traffic too, particularly on roads like this where it is really narrow. And as you make your way along roads like this, keep those mirrors covered, keep very aware of your clearance on both sides, and keep your speed low. At the end of this road, we're going to take a left, and it's another blind junction. So you need to bring yourself right up to the end of the road to see out of it, and just be very, very cautious before you pull out into that new road. As the pupil pulls out, you'll see the road ahead has a mini roundabout. The markings are really poor on this, but there are clearly lane markings, and there's warning signs about that too. Make sure you're watching out for cars from the right, of course, because they do have priority if they're turning into this road. If they're turning left, then they shouldn't be an issue to you. Up ahead, we're going to be coming to a traffic light junction where the pupil's been asked to follow the signs to the motorway, which is a right turn. So what I'd want to see is mirror checks and signals as soon as we're passing that direction sign, and then moving over gently into the right turn lane. The pupil does a really nice job of this one, of course, and then brings the car all the way up to the stop line. These lights do take a while to cycle through, so I'm going to skip through just like with some of the other traffic lights. As the lights change, you'll notice that the oncoming traffic's going at the same time and there's no light on the far side of the junction. That's because the cars coming towards us have a filter light. So if their light comes on, our lights will be red. If our lights go red and we can see it, that could mislead the driver into crossing the junction. So we have to look for gaps and make a safe judgment as to when to cross that road. As we're waiting, you notice a gap does appear. Now this one, the learner doesn't take because there's an ambulance coming across, and that is perfectly reasonable in my opinion. When the situation changes, however, and the van on the other side hesitates, they're stopping at a red light, there's a little bit of a delay before crossing. The lights change really quick on that junction, so we can't afford that kind of hesitation. So I'm going to record a driver fault for that one. If we do end up hesitating, you can get stuck in the middle of that junction or cause problems for the traffic coming across from the left side in particular as you're trying to join into their road. As we go across as well, we want to make sure we're keeping to the left-hand side as the lanes close in and building that speed up as the signs direct. You see it goes to 50 and then a little further down it goes up to national speed limit. Because there's a central division there, it is 70. As the pupil makes her way along the A38 here, you can see her speed does remain around about 40 to 45 mile an hour for a chunk of it, and this is because of the traffic lights. They've remained green for quite a while, which indicates they could change. And of course, we don't want to be picking up our speed too much as we're approaching those traffic lights. So whilst I'd like to ideally see a little bit more speed out of her on this road, I'm not going to falter because it's pretty reasonable to hang back a little with those lights in mind. She's also not causing any issues behind because the vehicles behind are all overtaken. They're already using the other lane. And then once we pass those lights, we're looking for signs for Huthwaite, and you can see that on the left-hand side there pointing right. The pupil checks her mirrors, gets on those signals, and moves over as soon as it's safe. And then using the signs up ahead, you'll see how it directs us into a filter lane ready to turn right for Huthwaite. Again, mirrors and signal before you take that move across the lanes, and then bring yourself up to the lights nice and smoothly. So as you can see, there's not really much gain in picking up the speed up to this set of lights. Even though it's a 70 mile an hour limit, it's not appropriate picking up towards a queue. We need to be cautious and bring that speed down in good time to make it smooth, and that's exactly what she does. As the lights change, good mirror checks before moving on and get that speed up reasonably quickly because it is a fast road. Although we're in a filter lane where we're going to be turning right, and you can see up ahead those lights are red. Our filter lane splits into two, so this is where I'd be looking for the pupil to take up the left hand of those two lanes. And this pupil does exactly that. If you're in the left-hand lane, when you make the turn, you're already in the defensive position where you don't have to overtake or move yourself into the other lane. The left is the ideal position to be in when you're on your test and when you're driving in general. So that's what I want to see. If you do end up in the right-hand lane, like the red car that you can see here, it's not the end of the world. Make the turn, check your mirrors, get your signal on, and move back in. But either way, you've got to make sure you maintain your lane as you make that turn. If you cross lanes as you're cornering, you're not going to pass your test and you're not going to keep yourself safe afterwards. You must keep good lane discipline on roads like that. Up ahead, we've got two mini roundabouts. You can see the signs for the first one and the second one just a little further down. The pupil does slow down a little more than I'd have liked, but it's pretty reasonable with the van there. I don't see any real issue with that, and the car behind, they have plenty of space to adjust, and I don't see any issue caused. So I don't see that as worth recording a fault, although we could have made a bit more progress through that junction. As we come up this road here, you can see the change from 40 to 30 mile an hour, so be very mindful of those speed changes. If you're still doing over 30, make sure you bring the speed down nice and smoothly and that you're covering the mirrors as you come into that new speed limit. If you don't check your mirrors when you're slowing down or speeding up, then you may get faulted by the examiner depending on what's going on behind you. If someone's coming up quick and you slow down sharply, that could cause an issue. So you've got to be very aware of who's around you when you change your speed. We're taking the next right turn. It's quite a difficult one to see this because it's just over the brow of the hill. And you can also see it's quite a blind entrance. You want to make sure you're pulling up like the pupil has here, giving yourself time to see. Now, while she was giving way to the oncoming cars, that also gave her time to look across and see what's going on in that road. We've got quite a few parked cars. There's a bus stop on the left, which implies there will be buses coming up and down this road and potentially pedestrians waiting around for that bus or even running for the bus. So lots of mirror use, looking way ahead and just keeping that speed nice and low, being ready for anything that comes the other way or anything behind us as well, such as mopeds, bikes that might gain on us and try and get round. This section of road has a bend to the left. You can just about see the markings there, which show you that road that was directly in front is actually a right turn, not straight ahead. So you've got to make sure you follow round the curve on that one and just nice and gently like this pupil did, because we don't know what's around there until we can see. If you come rushing around corners, you will get yourself caught out. You've got to remember that. I can't stress that one enough. You must see what you're going into before you do it. If you rush round, you're going to get faults. Up ahead, we've got a few oncoming cars, and the pupil makes a really sensible choice here to just hold back and let them clear the way before she pulls out. There's also a moped coming the other way, so whilst this is smaller, we don't want to squeeze our way through with it. So holding back and letting that scooter go is the right decision here. And again, lots of mirror use, so you know what's going on behind you when you do this. If you're not covering those mirrors, you don't know what's going on behind you, and then you can get caught out by things such as bikes coming around you. Push bikes in particular can catch up, and e-bikes when you're at those lower speeds. At the end of the road, we're turning right, and another quite difficult junction to see out of. So you want to get the car all the way up to that giveaway line and be mindful of the road opposite as well. See the Kia who's turning to our right there, left, and the Audi behind as well. We don't have priority over them and they don't have priority over us. It's a 50-50 situation. So you've got to negotiate with them. A bit of eye contact can be quite helpful. The pupil does a really nice job there of taking that priority when the other car hesitates as well. As soon as we pull out, we've got a zebra crossing to deal with, so you'll be looking around for pedestrians who may want to cross that road. If anyone does want to cross, then you must stop and let them cross the road. If you don't let them cross, then you are going to get faulted on your test, and very likely it will be a serious fault, which of course would mean a fail on your test. And we don't want to fail over something so daft as just not giving way. Note the person on the right there, he was looking around, there were clues that he was intent on crossing, but he didn't actually cross, and my pupil was a little bit miffed at that one, which was quite amusing in a sense. She was very careful of him, she was very defensive. She did the right things there because he gave those clues that said he was going to cross. So she played it safe rather than just ignoring him and carrying on. Note the bus up ahead waiting. The pupil weighed up the gap here really nicely, checking those mirrors and just taking her time in. There's no point rushing because of the bus ahead. We've got to wait for them to clear the way through before we can. So again, really nice approach to that. Now, along with the mirror use throughout this road, she's doing absolutely fantastic. We want to keep aware of those vehicles on the left and how much room we're leaving. So if we're getting too close, we can adjust, and that the examiners then know we're aware of how close we are to. Passing the bus is absolutely fine in this situation too, as long as, like this pupil, you take your time and you check your mirrors. We don't know what's around the front of that bus, and if you rush around the front of the bus and there's something there and it catches you out, then potentially again, you're going to give yourself a lot of stress that you don't need. Pulling up on the left here, and the pupil's picked a lovely spot to pull over. High curb, just far enough away from the junction and inside those parking bays. And she gave the vehicles behind plenty of time to respond by putting her signals on in good time too. So mirrors and signals are essential when you're pulling over. When you move away again, find a safe gap, check that blind spot, and then signal and out you go if it's safe. If you're not sure and there's vehicles approaching, then the best bet is just sit tight and wait for them to pass. You cannot get faulted for remaining parked for a few moments. Up ahead, we're coming to a roundabout where it can be really easy to get caught out, unfortunately, because both of the lanes from the right hand side can come around. Now, the wider lane looks like it can't, but it definitely can, and that's what catches this pupil out with the red car that's just went out of view there. She ends up braking just a little bit firmly at the end to let them around the roundabout. So you've got to make sure you're watching out for traffic in that outer lane as they go around, because like I say, it looks like they should leave the roundabout, but when you come around from the other side, you'll see both lanes allow you to come around, and you've got 2 lanes ahead of you too. So just your driver fault for that, because it was a little bit late and a little bit firm, but she recovered quite well in bringing the car to a stop before the line without the brakes being excessive or creating a high risk to people behind. As you're passing cars, make sure that you are looking for occupied vehicles or vehicles trying to pull out into the traffic. If a door opens, you want to be that far away from the vehicle that the door doesn't get in your way. But equally, not too wide, because then you're going to interfere with the oncoming cars. So your position's really important. Now, I often say when there's buses around, people who run for the bus tend to not think about what they're doing too much. And there's a perfect example of the man running across the road there. So be very mindful to look around for pedestrians who may be running for the bus when you're approaching one at a bus stop. As we continue, you can see the pupil frequently leaving a good gap between the car in front and our own. She's never right up to the bumper, but equally she's not miles away from them, and that's absolutely perfect. The yellow box there, we're nice and clear on the far side, so she carries on, just mindful of pedestrians at crossings because that's an indication the light could change, and left at the roundabout first exit, so she takes her time making sure she can see it's clear before crossing, and then off she goes. Really good mirror use, really good observations as she's doing that. And again, I can't stress how important those observations are. You must keep your head moving, you must keep covering your mirrors. But while you're doing that, make sure that you've got your mind mostly focused on the road ahead, because if you're distracted by what's in your mirrors or what's around you, you can end up causing yourself other issues by not concentrating on the road ahead as your main focus. There's another pelican crossing ahead, and as you can see, this one's nice and clear. If it's clear, you can reasonably say it's going to stay green, so watch out for pedestrians who may be nearby who might have pressed the button, crossed and walked off, or just pressed it as they're going by because it's funny to make cars stop when they're not crossing the road. Some people even press it, walk off, and then cross further up once the traffic has stopped. So just be mindful of any pedestrians when you're passing crossings. Up ahead, we're taking up the right-hand lane, ready to turn right at the traffic lights, and this one is quite an awkward angle because the right turn's very sharp. What we want to do is aim for the right-hand arrow, the filter lane, putting yourself face-to-face with the oncoming car like this pupil does perfectly. Then you wait, ready to turn into your road, waiting for a safe gap, and remembering those oncoming cars have priority. So the pupil just wanted to confirm the Nissan there was turning. She did a really good job of just holding her position until she was certain it was safe. Absolutely perfect example of how to do that junction. At the end of this road, we're going to take a left turn, and again, another blind junction where you can't see anything until you're right up to the end. So really important again to get all the way to the giveaway line, and then you can see and make a good, safe decision. If you don't allow yourself to do this, then you're going to end up rolling out without making effective observations. And remember, not making effective observations at junctions is the most common reason for failing the driving test. So make sure you have plenty of time to see what's going on before you pull out of that junction. As we move off at this set of traffic lights, we're going to bear right. Now you notice there's no left turn. There's a road off to the left and the right ahead, and then a right turn. So what you want to do is cross here with no signals, just following the vehicle in front. The pupil did consider signalling, but I reminded her it's bear right, not turn right. I didn't feel this was worth faulting her for because the junction on the right is quite difficult to see until you get into the traffic lights. As we make our way down them, we're going to be turning right shortly ahead by the Kia dealership, and that will lead us straight back to the test centre. See the bus coming towards us waiting to turn across? Well, our turn is directly behind that bus, and you'll notice the markings as we come by where the pupil should bring the car into that centre box. She leaves the move a little bit late, but does get clear of the cars that want to go straight ahead. So it's not enough, in my opinion, to warrant a serious fault, but it is noteworthy, and I'm going to put a driver fault down for that. Looking for a gap in the oncoming traffic, she then makes good progress as well. So there's no hesitation, there's no overthinking. It was just a little bit late bringing that position in, and with the bus obstructing the view, I can understand that. Because the wheels weren't fully in that filter box, I'm going to put a driver fault, but because it didn't stop any traffic or cause any issues, I'm going to just leave it as driver, not a serious fault. Making our way along this road, you'll notice a number of parked cars, and again, we've got to leave that doors width where we can, Where we can't and we have to get closer to those parked vehicles, we want to be slowing that car down, just making sure we've got plenty of thinking time as we come by, particularly with big vehicles like the Asda van there. We don't know what's the other side of it. Now, just as we come around the bend up ahead, there's a perfect example of why we don't want to carry full speed down these roads where we can't see effectively. The car parked on the corner with the door open, it creates a massive barrier to our space, and we've got to go around it safely. The pupil handles that really nicely, and I think that carrying the lowered speed of about 20 to 25 mile an hour instead of going full pelt at 30 is what made the difference there. If you're coming around too fast, you are not going to have the time to react to things like that. Covering your mirrors frequently is also going to help keep you safe in situations like that, because you already know what's behind, so you can use that to adapt your plan more safely and more effectively. As we approach the traffic lights, we're going straight across, and the pupil uses the left-hand lane, which is absolutely fine. Some people use the right lane because they know we're turning right into the test centre afterwards. And again, as long as you merge safely on the other side, that is not a problem. As we cross the lights, what I want to see is plenty of mirror use, making sure that the cars next to you are not going to cause you a problem, and that if they are planning to overtake you, if they're accelerating or pushing up on you, that you're ready to defend yourself from them by backing off and just letting them get ahead. That brings us up to the right turn into the test centre, and the pupil does a really nice job of bringing the car as far forward as she can to get accurately into that far left position on the turn. That brings this mock test to a successful end, which is really, really good to see. Thank you ever so much for watching this. I hope it's been useful. Please do like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I'll keep these coming. Thank you again, and God bless.